Welcome to another deep dive into the forces that shaped our species. I'm your host, Madison Reed, and this is The Story of Us. Today, we're exploring one of the most transformative relationships in human history, our bond with fire. Picture this: a lone woman, 800,000 years ago, holding nothing more than a flint stick. Within hours, she could set an entire forest ablaze. This wasn't just survival. This was the moment humanity transcended its physical limitations and began its journey toward planetary dominance. Today, we're going to trace the incredible story of how fire didn't just help humans survive. It fundamentally rewired our biology, reshaped entire continents, and ultimately made us who we are today. From the deepest caves of South Africa to the philosophical hearths of ancient civilizations, this is the untold story of humanity's most crucial partnership. Crave tales of invention, myth, and the evolutionary leaps that made us who we are? Don't stop here. Unlock more with Skoob, the AI-powered podcast app featuring over 1,500 carefully curated podcasts just for you. Whether your curiosity burns for the origins of technology, the mysteries of prehistory, or the science that shaped civilization, Skoob brings you deeper, faster insights. Download Skoob from the App Store or Play Store and keep fueling your mind with the stories that set humanity apart. Let's journey into the fire, because to understand our past, we need to light up the darkness. Let's start our journey in the depths of South African caves, where archaeologists have uncovered one of the most dramatic reversals in natural history. In the deepest, oldest layers of these excavations, layers dating back hundreds of thousands of years, we find a world where humans were decidedly not at the top of the food chain. Picture the evidence: chewed-on remains of Homo erectus, scattered alongside other unfortunate prey, with the complete skeletons of large predators like big cats dominating the scene. No carbon deposits, no signs of fire, just the brutal reality of early humans as lunch for the apex predators of their time. But as archaeologists worked their way up through the layers, moving forward in time, something extraordinary happened. The story flipped completely. Suddenly, we find carbon deposits, the telltale signs of controlled fire. Complete skeletons of Homo erectus appear, no longer the victims, but the victors. And most remarkably, gnawed bones of large cats begin to appear, the former predators now reduced to the remnants of human meals. This dramatic reversal in the cave hierarchy tells us everything we need to know about fire's transformative power. The species that learned to harness this elemental force didn't just survive, they revolutionized their entire position in the natural world. The timeline of this mastery is staggering. Evidence suggests that hominids were controlling fire at least 400,000 years ago, with some indications pushing this back as far as 800,000 years. By 300,000 years ago, species including Homo erectus, Neanderthals, and the ancestors of Homo sapiens had woven fire into the fabric of their daily existence. At its most basic level, fire provided what every vulnerable creature desperately needed: warmth, light, and protection from the dangers that prowled through the darkness. But calling fire merely a tool doesn't capture its true nature. Unlike a knife or a spear, fire possessed a dynamic life of its own. It was, at best, what we might call a semi-domesticate, prone to becoming uncontrollable if inadequately managed. The psychological impact of controlling such a powerful force cannot be overstated. These early humans had gained command over something that could banish the oppressive darkness, provide warmth against the bitter cold, and create a protective barrier that wild animals instinctively avoided. For the first time in the history of life on Earth, a species could decide when and where to kindle a flame, bending this elemental force to their will. But the true revolution began when our ancestors made a discovery that would fundamentally alter the course of human evolution: cooking. Charles Darwin himself briefly suggested that the advent of fire and cooking played a significant role in human development. But it was primatologist Richard Wrangham who developed this into a comprehensive theory that's reshaping how we understand our own evolution. Here's the remarkable thing about cooking. It's essentially external digestion. When we apply fire to raw materials, we begin breaking down food before it even enters our bodies. This process transforms complex starches, breaks down proteins, and reduces the energy our digestive systems need to extract nutrients. Consider this striking comparison. Chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, spend approximately 5 hours each day just chewing raw food. Thanks to cooking, humans need only about an hour to consume their meals. That's 4 additional hours every single day that our ancestors could dedicate to other activities: hunting, tool-making, socializing, or simply thinking. But the benefits went far beyond time savings. Cooking fundamentally expanded what could be considered food. Substances that were previously indigestible, wheat, rice, potatoes, became crucial components of the human diet. Thorny plants, thick-skinned fruits, tough seeds that would have been impossible to process, raw suddenly became accessible sources of nutrition. The safety benefits were equally revolutionary. Cooking eradicated pathogens and parasites that infested food, making consumption far safer. It could detoxify certain plants, rendering them edible when they would otherwise be harmful. It reduced food spoilage, extending the period over which food could be safely stored. Now here's where the story gets truly fascinating from an evolutionary perspective. The energy savings from cooking didn't just make life easier. They triggered a cascade of biological changes that literally reshaped our species. Compared to our ancestors, modern humans have significantly smaller teeth and shorter intestines. We spend dramatically less energy on food processing than other primates. But perhaps most remarkably, these digestive efficiencies may have directly enabled the expansion of our brains. Think about it from an energy perspective. Both long intestines and large brains are incredibly energy-demanding organs. It's challenging for any organism to sustain both simultaneously. By reducing the energy consumption of our digestive systems through cooking, our ancestors inadvertently paved the way for the development of the significantly larger brains we see in both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Richard Wrangham argues that there's a direct correlation between the emergence of cooking, the reduction in the length of the human digestive tract, and the expansion of the human brain. The archaeological record supports this theory. The appearance of hearths in ancient sites aligns historically with evidence of increased brain size. These aren't just theoretical changes we're talking about. The enduring genetic and physiological consequences of cooking span at least 500,000 years of human evolution. Similar morphological changes in other species have been documented to occur in as few as 20,000 years, following dietary and ecological shifts. In many ways, cooking represents humanity's first great technological breakthrough, a discovery that didn't just change what we ate, but literally changed what we were. While cooking was transforming human biology, our ancestors were simultaneously discovering that fire could be used to reshape entire landscapes. What emerges from the archaeological and anthropological record is a picture of early humans not as passive inhabitants of natural environments, but as active ecosystem engineers on a scale that wouldn't be matched until the industrial age. Indigenous peoples around the world observed natural wildfires and recognized their landscape-transforming effects. Fires cleared old vegetation and facilitated the growth of grasses and shrubs bearing beneficial seeds, berries, and nuts. They flushed out game, exposed hidden burrows and nests, and encouraged new growth that attracted grazing animals to specific areas. But here's what's remarkable. Rather than simply taking advantage of natural fires, our ancestors began deliberately setting fires to create the conditions they wanted. Indigenous North Americans became masters of this technique, using fire to mold landscapes specifically for hunting elk, deer, beaver, hare, porcupine, and birds like ruffed grouse, turkey, and quail. They were essentially harvesting wild prey from habitats they had purposefully crafted. This wasn't random burning, it was sophisticated environmental management. Long before the invention of bows and arrows, humans were using fire to manipulate entire hunting environments, deploying it to drive large game over cliffs or into natural traps like bogs, where they could be more easily dispatched. The scale of this fire-driven landscape modification was breathtaking. It left enduring marks on environments across the globe, from the Amazonian rainforest, where it cleared land and opened the canopy, to the eucalyptus-dominated ecology of Australia. In North America, the transformation was so extensive that when indigenous fire management practices ceased due to epidemics introduced by Europeans, the resulting forest regeneration led settlers to mistakenly perceive the continent as an untouched wilderness. Some climatologists even theorize that the Little Ice Age, from roughly 1500 to 1850, might have been triggered by reduced CO2 levels resulting from the decline of these indigenous fire practices in North America. Imagine that. Human fire management was so extensive that its cessation may have influenced global climate patterns. From an anthropological perspective, this fire-driven environmental management achieved something crucial. It concentrated subsistence resources within increasingly smaller areas. This practice rearranged valuable flora and fauna closer to human settlements, dramatically simplifying hunting and foraging. The radius within which one needed to gather a meal was reduced, placing vital resources within easy reach and making them more abundant and dependable. Evolutionary biologists have a term for this strategy: niche construction. It's similar to what beavers do when they alter their habitats by building dams, but on a far more sophisticated scale. Early humans were crafting mosaics of ecosystems that favored biodiversity and increased the availability of desired resources. This perspective fundamentally recasts traditional milestones of civilization. Plant and animal domestication weren't starting points. They were elements of a long continuum of evolving landscape manipulation that began with fire management hundreds of thousands of years earlier. The environments tailored by human-managed fire often prevented the development of nutrient-poor climax forests, maintaining instead the kind of diverse, productive ecosystems that could support larger human populations. While not yet cultivating fully domesticated plants and animals, early humans were engaging in sophisticated landscape and resource management practices that set the stage for agricultural innovations millennia later. The mastery of fire created the first major divide between humans and every other species on Earth. This wasn't just another evolutionary adaptation, it was a fundamental break from the rules that had governed life for billions of years. Most animals, no matter how sophisticated, are ultimately limited by their physical attributes. Their muscle strength, tooth size, wingspan, or claw sharpness determine their power in the world. Even animals that can utilize natural forces, like eagles riding thermal updrafts, cannot control these elements and remain bound by their physical limitations. Eagles provide a perfect example. They can detect thermal updrafts and soar by spreading their large wings, demonstrating remarkable aerial intelligence. But they cannot determine where these updrafts occur, when they'll appear, or how strong they'll be. The amount they can carry remains dependent on their wingspan, and their hunting success relies on their natural physical capabilities. Humans, through fire, shattered these constraints completely. Unlike any other species, we gained command over a powerful and potentially boundless force that operated independently of our physical limitations. The implications were staggering. Consider this. A single individual, armed with nothing more than a flint stick, could set an entire forest ablaze within hours. The strength of fire transcended human physical limitations in ways that no biological adaptation ever could. While a lion's power was limited by the strength of its muscles and the sharpness of its claws, human power could now extend to reshaping entire ecosystems. This control wasn't passive or accidental. Humans possessed the unique ability to decide when and where to start a fire, utilizing it for multiple purposes. We could banish darkness, ward off predators, clear land, drive game, cook food, or simply provide warmth and comfort. Fire became humanity's first truly versatile tool, if we can even call something with its own dynamic life a tool. The psychological impact of this control cannot be understated. For the first time in Earth's history, a species had access to power that was essentially unlimited by biological constraints. A human's strength was no longer measured solely by muscle mass or jaw power, but by their ability to harness and direct an elemental force. This mastery of fire foreshadowed the exceptional trajectory of human development that was yet to come. It established a pattern that would repeat throughout human history: the ability to transcend biological limitations through the control of external forces. From fire to agriculture, from the wheel to nuclear power, humans would continue to amplify their capabilities far beyond what their physical bodies alone could achieve. But perhaps most importantly, fire established humans as the first species capable of wielding power that was not directly tied to their biological evolution. While other animals remained locked in the slow process of genetic adaptation, humans could rapidly expand their capabilities by mastering external tools and forces. No other animal has achieved anything remotely comparable. No other species has learned to tame fire or comprehended its behavior and potential as we have. Long before humans achieved true mastery, the ability to reliably ignite and contain flames, they needed to understand fire's personality and behavior, treating it almost as a living entity. This theory of mind applied to fire, the ability to predict and understand its tendencies, may have its roots in the same deep-seated social behaviors that enabled cooperative hunting and complex survival strategies. Learning to read fire's moods and responses was perhaps humanity's first lesson in managing a powerful but unpredictable partner. Let me paint you a picture from the volcanic crater of Mount Meru in Tanzania, circa 1962. A small group of adventurers, including aged tobacco-chewing Mzee and his spear-wielding sons Carino and Mauricio, descended into this ancient crater as fog enveloped twisted trees festooned with dark green moss. They made camp beside a shallow pond in a small forested area, choosing their spot beneath a substantial tree. As darkness approached, the first priority was clear to everyone: gather dry wood and build a fire. This wasn't just about comfort. Recent encounters with wildlife made the stakes crystal clear. Acquaintances had been gored by buffalo, chased up trees by elephants, and charged by rhinos. The muddy perimeter of their camping pond bore evidence of frequent visits by these dangerous animals. But as the fire roared to life, something remarkable happened. The worries of the wild faded into the background. Throughout the night, sporadic splashes and the occasional crack of twigs broke the silence, yet the group felt a profound sense of security by the fire's side. It was almost instinctual to trust in its protective embrace. This scene, replicated countless times across human history, illustrates fire's fundamental role in creating the first secure social spaces. When early humans gained control of fire, they didn't just gain a tool, they gained the ability to create homes. The hearth became humanity's first true architectural achievement. Initially, just a ring of stones within a circular enclosure made from brush, skins, or sod, the hearth represented something revolutionary, a fixed point around which human society could organize itself. Richard Wrangham theorizes that structured hunting cultures among early hominins arose only once secure encampments were established near caves or cliffsides. Fire transformed these rudimentary dwellings into secure sanctuaries, extending their utility as gathering spaces where families could safely consume harvested and cooked meals without threat from powerful predators like lions, leopards, hyenas, and wild dog packs. But managing fire required something unprecedented in the animal kingdom: dedicated effort and communal cooperation. Like the social organization we observe in species such as mole rats, bees, and termites, human fire management created specialized roles within groups. The strongest pursued prey, while others offered essential services like childcare, meal preparation, and maintenance of the fire, all thriving under the hearth's protective influence. The social implications were profound. Fire became a focal point that demanded mastery to transcend passive observation. It created humanity's first truly shared responsibility. Keeping the flames alive required constant attention, cooperation, and the transmission of knowledge between generations. Around these fires, human culture truly began to flourish. Evenings, once confined to basic survival activities, could now be spent in pursuits that contributed to the development of language, the strengthening of family and community ties, and the creation of art and music. It was under the flickering glow of fire that philosophy could begin, enabling people to confront mysteries not with terror, but with curiosity and wonder. The hearth also fundamentally changed human spatial organization. Before fire, humans were nomadic by necessity, always moving in search of food and safety. The hearth created the first incentive for semi-permanent settlement, a place worth returning to, worth defending, worth improving. Indigenous designs like the Native American teepee represent the pinnacle of this fire-centered architecture. These ingenious structures embraced fire within organic buffalo hide walls, vented through well-designed smoke flaps. Easily erected and dismantled, they served nomadic societies following bison herds, yet were hardy enough for fixed settlements on windswept prairies. Throughout history, the hearth remained a dwelling's keystone. From simple rock circles to sophisticated iron stoves, from Benjamin Franklin's 1741 improved stove design to modern central heating systems, the principle remained the same: containing and channeling fire's power while maintaining its social centrality. Fire's gravitational draw unified human groups in ways that no other force could match. It demanded collective responsibility, encouraged storytelling and bonding, and created the first truly shared human spaces. In many ways, the hearth was where humanity learned to be social creatures living in permanent communities, rather than temporary survival groups. Liking what you're hearing? Don't miss out on any new episode by clicking like and subscribing to the channel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. The discovery and utilization of fire marked something far more profound than just a technological advancement. It represented humanity's first escape from the fundamental rhythms that had governed all life on Earth. For billions of years, the cycles of light and dark, warmth and cold, had been the ultimate arbiters of when life could be active and when it needed to rest. Fire allowed early humans to manipulate and extend the natural cycles of light and dark in ways that no other species had ever achieved. This newfound control meant we were no longer at the mercy of cold nights or the threats that prowled in darkness. But in gaining this power, humanity fundamentally altered its relationship with the planet's natural rhythms. Traditionally, the transition from light to darkness, warmth to cold, represented significant evolutionary pressures that shaped life itself. Cold, especially, served as a vital evolutionary challenge that stimulated problem-solving skills and survival strategies. When faced with cold, organisms must generate warmth, preserve heat, and protect themselves from the elements, responses that drive innovation and adaptation. Think about your own experience. Perhaps a vehicle breakdown in snowy conditions. Such adversity forces immediate action and leaves lasting impressions. The collective memory of humanity has been shaped by countless similar evolutionary challenges over millennia, ensuring that problem solvers thrived and passed on their adaptive traits. Extensive periods of ice and snow throughout human history honed our species' mental and physical capabilities. Our physiology and intellect became deeply intertwined with nature's cycles. Photoperiodic cells in our bodies maintain connections with celestial cycles, binding us to solar and lunar influences every moment of our existence. But fire disrupted this ancient relationship. Our ancestors traditionally embraced periods of dormancy during harsh seasons, retreating into caves and conserving energy through reduced metabolic activity when resources dwindled. This cycle operated much like our daily experiences with natural light and darkness, illustrating a fractal relationship between daily and seasonal rhythms. Hibernational habits over the ages developed to complement gestational periods, culminating in spring births when resources were again plentiful. Studies of hibernating animals demonstrate improved learning and memory retention when these creatures have opportunities to retreat during adverse conditions. However, the introduction of fire transformed this dynamic completely. Year-round elemental warmth from fire prompted perpetual reproductive readiness, manipulated by hormonal changes that subdued natural melatonin production for extended activity during winter months. In recent millennia, humans have essentially lived under artificial suns, electric lighting creating environments akin to perpetual daylight, reminiscent of science fiction worlds like those in Isaac Asimov's novels. This manipulation of natural cycles induces stress and disrupts our neurological balance in ways we're only beginning to understand. The traditional cycle of enduring dark and cold seasons necessitated dormancy for survival, fostering adaptability and strategic resilience. Fire distanced humanity from the natural rhythm of Earth's cycles, creating a permanent alteration in how we exist within the universe's larger patterns. Even today, we see evidence of this disruption in phenomena like raw food enthusiasts who strictly avoid cooking. These individuals often lose weight due to the decreased caloric efficiency of raw diets, demonstrating how thoroughly cooking and fire have rewired human biology. We've become what might be called fire dependents, a species so thoroughly adapted to fire's presence that we struggle to thrive without it. If domestication is defined as the inability of a species to survive without human intervention, then perhaps fire has essentially domesticated humanity. From pottery and metalwork to baking and brewing, from the hearths of our ancestors to the engines of modern civilization, our existence remains intertwined with fire for countless crafts and industries. We are, in many ways, a fire-adapted species, as dependent on controlled combustion as certain trees and fungi are on periodic wildfires. This relationship has made us something unique in the natural world, a species that operates partially outside the rhythms that govern all other life. Fire gave us the power to create our own cycles of activity and rest, but it also began humanity's long journey away from the natural world that shaped our evolution. As we reach the end of our journey through fire's transformative power, we arrive at perhaps its most profound impact: how fire shaped human consciousness and spiritual understanding. The relationship between humanity and fire runs so deep that it appears in the mythologies and spiritual traditions of cultures across the globe, often portrayed not as a mere discovery, but as a divine gift. The Greek myth of Prometheus stands as perhaps the most famous example, the titan who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity, forever changing our destiny. But similar stories appear across cultures worldwide, suggesting a universal recognition that fire represented something far more significant than just another tool. From a mystical perspective, a fire burning through the night may have served as humanity's first scrying device, an aid in meditation and introspection that could induce trance-like states. The repetitive patterns of light and shadow that dance in flames naturally captivate the observer's mind, similar to how crystal balls, smoky mirrors, or bowls of water have been used throughout history for meditation and divination. Firelight, ever in motion, appears animated and alive. Its smoke ascends skyward and fades away, conveying the powerful sense that fire's essence or spirit reaches toward the celestial realm, offering a bridge between the earthly and the divine. This perception of smoke as a vehicle to communicate with higher realms appears across cultures. Historical accounts by Diodorus Siculus document Celtic rituals where messages would be inscribed on sticks and burned with the deceased, believing that these messages would ascend to the other world with the smoke, becoming accessible to departed loved ones. The smoke's ethereal dance into the atmosphere transformed it into a natural emblem for communication between the physical world and mysterious spiritual realms. Fire's presence symbolized the tangible manifestation of divine power, a testament to its revered role throughout human history. But perhaps fire's greatest spiritual contribution was its role in fostering the development of abstract thought itself. Under the flickering glow of flames, with their changing shadows and hypnotic movements, early humans found themselves with time to contemplate questions beyond immediate survival. Evenings around the fire became humanity's first universities. The dynamic movement of flames and glowing embers stimulated minds that were already being enhanced by cooking's nutritional benefits. Philosophy could begin in these firelit circles, enabling people to confront mysteries not with terror, but with wonder and curiosity. Fire created the conditions necessary for the emergence of complex language, storytelling, and cultural transmission. The Polynesian folklore of Whakaofo includes tales of Talangi approaching the elderly blind woman Mafuik for fire, not just seeking flame, but also guidance on which fish to cook and which to eat raw. This legend marks not just the acquisition of fire, but the beginning of culinary culture itself. Every known human society has possessed both fire and cooked food, suggesting a deep, universal connection between humanity and these practices that transcends mere utility. Fire became integral to human culture and social connections, acting as a catalyst for communal dining, shared experiences, and the development of traditions that bind communities together. The gravitational pull of fire continues to unite us today. Whether we're teenage adventurers on camping trips or seasoned survivalists, winter outings and fireside experiences continue to liberate us from the constraints of modern life, breaking the bonds of our technological dependencies and reconnecting us with something primal and essential. Across eons, outside equatorial refuges, fire assured human survival and enabled the widespread exploration and settlement that brought our species to every continent. It became a hotbed of discovery, socialization, and sustenance that transcends mere practicality, embodying the elemental heart of humanity itself. Fire remains uniquely human among all of Earth's species. While we've discovered that many traits we once thought were exclusively human, reasoning, emotional depth, toolmaking, and foresight, are actually common among other animals, fire control remains our unique signature. Of all the species that have ever lived, only 4 members of the genus Homo have wielded flame: H. erectus, H. neanderthalensis, H. floresiensis, and H. sapiens. By learning to control fire, human nature engaged in a profound dance with elemental forces that echoes through every epoch of our existence. From those first circles of safety created by our ancestors 800,000 years ago to the rocket engines that carry us toward the stars today, fire remains the constant companion that has shaped not just what we do, but what we are. As we conclude this exploration of humanity's most transformative relationship, it's worth reflecting on just how completely fire has woven itself into the fabric of human existence. We began as a species limited by our physical constraints, vulnerable to predators, constrained by daylight, and dependent on raw foods that required hours of daily chewing. Fire changed everything. It transformed us from prey to predator, from biological beings bound by evolutionary limitations to creatures capable of reshaping entire continents. It rewired our digestive systems, expanded our brains, created our first communities, and gave birth to culture itself. Today, as we face challenges of climate change, technological disruption, and environmental crisis, perhaps there's something to be learned from this ancient partnership. Fire taught our ancestors that the most powerful forces in nature, the ones that seem most dangerous and unpredictable, can become humanity's greatest allies when approached with respect, understanding, and wisdom. The story of fire and humanity isn't just about the past. It's about understanding the creative potential that emerges when human intelligence partners with natural forces. It's a reminder that we are not separate from nature, but rather a species that learned to dance with its most powerful elements. From the first spark that banished darkness to the controlled fusion reactions we hope will power our future, fire continues to light the way forward. The hearth still calls to us, echoing through the epochs, reminding us of that fundamental moment when humanity learned to transcend its limitations and began its extraordinary journey toward becoming a force of nature itself. I'm Madison Reed, and this has been The Story of Us. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of fire and humanity. For more deep dives into the origins of technology, the forces that shaped civilization, and the stories that define who we are, explore Skoob, the AI-powered podcast app with over 1,500 expertly curated episodes inspired by groundbreaking research from the world's best resources. Download Skoob now from the App Store or Play Store and keep feeding your curiosity. One spark, one story at a time. Until next time, keep that spark of curiosity burning bright.